Spike, I got a tech question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you have the Rode Procaster, yeah?
I think so. Yeah.
What does the ear button do? What does the listen button do next to the mute button?
I feel like this is teasing me because I'm not up there now, so I can't look at it. I don't know.
I figured it was like a used button enough to know that's simple. I don't know.
I'll go look at it later. Did you get one?
No, I got the Duo, the Rodecaster Duo. So it's newer and smaller.
Okay.
So I can do. You hear that? Did that come through? Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So I can do fun stuff like that.
Wow.
So
but
we're
so loud.
We're gonna.
That was so surprising.
In case we record any Trey Songz music, we'll be able to add horns to it.
The air horn is an essential part of any soundboard.
Yeah.
So it's good that it came.
When you can program it, right? Like,
yeah. So ideally, that's coming along. But
all right, there we go.
Should have a new intro video by next pod as well.
Oh boy.
It's only been months since Harden got traded. Yeah.
I did update it after he got traded, after the shit started going down with talking to children. So it hasn't been the same static video for a year plus.
It should be a new video every podcast.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, that's
are we working or are we not
Easy
working?
one.
Yeah, right. Check clear.
I don't say the same things every podcast, you know?
That's Each intro vid should be like a recap of the last podcast. Like the question
is, what are you producing? What are you producing? Produce something. Yeah, I don't want this for the pod, though I'm sure there will be some hip discussion. This is a filter in only, so this is for the real ones out there. Obviously, there are a lot of problems for people who are addicted to Oxycontin, obviously. One side effect to Oxycontin is it makes you constipated. That would be enough for me to make sure. I've been on it for 4 days, and it's been 4 days, and I'm okay now. Man, that is a rough thing to go through. It's just, especially when you're regular, I'm a regular guy, to not be regular.
I've never been constipated in my life. Not once.
It is, Mike, I'll tell you, and obviously, you with, stomach issues. It is the most maddening thing. I actually couldn't pee as well the first day, but that was because of the spinal block or whatever. The constipation thing is maddening. I have 3 16-ounce things of prunes in my house.
Yowza.
Yeah.
The prunes. I've never had to resort to the prunes.
Yeah, it's rough, bro. It's rough. All right, we ready to go? Ready to do a
you're on the clock,
here?
so let's do it before this is a minutes restriction podcast.
I'm okay. I'm actually okay. Okay. Well, I think I'm okay. We'll see. I can't even, I'm not on my normal thing, so I can't see if we're doing it. We are. Okay. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS, and brought to you by Briggs Auction, the official auction of the process at briggsauction.com/Ricky. Fly the process. Come with us to Los Angeles in March with us and fans of Philly to see Sixers Clippers. Learn more at rightstrickysanchez.com/fly. Body Bio. Get 20% off any order with code Mike's Tummy at bodybio.com. I should be taking some of that butyrate. That's actually the problem that I'm not taking. Yep. And Stateside Urban Craft Vodka, the official home of the Corner 3 newsletter with Zoe. Sign up at rightstoRickySanchez.com/newsletter. On the show today, Sixers back on the winning track as I return to the podcast. Coincidence? I don't know. Sixers, however, now 2-1 in in-season tournament play, do need some help. They do need some help, Mike, to get into the official midseason tournament. So we'll talk about that as well. The system is operating exactly as planned out in Los Angeles. Some interesting questions I have for Mike that came from a listener about star hunting and Pascal Siakam. And of course, I return here from hip surgery. I'm not back, but I'm back, right? One thing I have missed over the last 5 days, as I have not been able to consume any alcohol, is my Stateside vodka. One of these nights, I've had a rough 5 days. I would have loved to settle on the couch with a Surfside iced tea and vodka, or a Stateside vodka, or I think now you can still pre-order the Black Label bourbon. Haven't been able to do it. Looking forward to getting off these drugs so I can do it. We always talk about Surfside, which everybody knows and everybody loves. Surfside iced tea and vodka, the best of its kind, the best tasting of its kind, only 100 calories. But the regular stateside vodka, it's not just regular. Made right there in Philly. Come on. Got to buy Philly. And then the Black Label bourbon they do once a year, which I think is still on sale right now. I should have checked. I looked yesterday or the day before. They all run together. But all their products, absolutely amazing. Go to statesidevodka.com. You got to be 21 to drink it. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with now not the only guy who has ever hosted this podcast while on some sort of pill that makes him less than he normally is. That is one Mike Levin.
That's right. Happy to be here. Happy that the hips swapped for you.
Or so they tell me.
Or so they tell you. I guess there's no way to know until should we open it up? Should we just check?
The look at, well, I
I'm
guess
saying
I could.
Get a knife in there, start carving.
Yeah.
And I'm also happy to back to being not the host. Being the host of this podcast, I do not like it. I do not enjoy it. I like being the other guy. I like being the other guy that just gets to say the stuff and not have to do all the other stuff.
Yeah. I was going to ask you what you dislike about it the most, the main podcast host person.
I mean, like reading the stuff and like doing the ads and then being like, hold on there and keeping track of it all. It's not, it was nice to talk to Abby about the design. It was nice to hang with CJ and stuff. That was fun. Caitlin Cooper was a great guest. She was awesome. The fans really liked her. She's the best. Totally took me to basketball school. Absolutely showed me a thing or two. But yeah, it's just way easier to sit here while you do all the other stuff. I just get to talk about the game or whatever. That's way easier. Way better.
Well, speaking of the game, we should talk about it. You see how I did that? That was
really nice.
Yeah.
I could never do that.
So Sixers beat the Hawks in, I don't want to belabor the in-season tournament play, but it was, first of all, now I want them to win, and I want them to get into it. It was funny that the end of this game became a whole thing because point differential is actually a thing in the in-season tournament. The way that the Sixers get into the actual tournament, the only way they can win Group A one of two ways, because the Pacers are currently undefeated. They're 2-0 in group play. The Sixers already lost to the Pacers. So if the Sixers beat the Cavs, assuming the Sixers beat the Cavs in their final game of in-season tournament play, they either need the Pacers to lose their two remaining in-season tournament games, or they need to surpass the Pacers. If the Pacers lose once, let's say, they need to surpass the Pacers in point differential, which would be tough at this point. So
Are you sure? I think it's pretty close point differential wise.
No, take a look. I don't think it is actually.
Didn't Keith Pompey just tweet it while I was watching?
I don't know. Take a look. I thought it was.
Yeah, Pacers in-season tournament plus 11, Sixers in-season tournament plus 12.
Oh, currently. Really?
Yeah.
I don't trust Keith.
Cavs
unless we're talking 9/11
he's a screenshot. But yes, I guess 9/11 is what I trust Keith on the most. But a screenshot of NBA.com.
Okay. Well, then it would. Okay. All right. So it's possible. It's possible.
Yeah. Pacers need to lose one of their next two games.
So
I love the point differential wrinkle. I think it's fun.
It's kind of fun. It is kind of neat that the players do seem to care about this a little bit. You know, the first week, I didn't even know it was happening the first time they played. I knew that the in-season tournament was happening, but I didn't know that first game, that Friday, was the in-season tournament. But it seems like everybody cares a little bit now.
Mm-hmm. It's very easy. The Tuesdays and games on Tuesdays and Fridays in November. That's when the in-season tournament games count. And then I think it's going to be like people are still confused by it, and when it gets to 8 teams, it's going to be a little confusing still. But once there's 4 teams in Vegas, I think it's going to be very fun. It's going to have that March Madness feel to it. I'm excited about it.
Here is, from the win over the Hawks, it was a good win over the Hawks. I think it's predictable that this is what I'm going to start with. And you had mentioned it, I think, briefly previously, maybe even before he had played a game for the Sixers again. And I don't know if you talked about it with Caitlin at all on the pod. The difference, obviously, Robert Covington is a different physical basketball player than he was when he was here before. He has lost some of his athleticism from when he was here. He was never Mr. Athlete or whatever, but he is clearly like a step slower than he was. But he is a much better basketball player than he was when he was here.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a offensively, he's a much better basketball player. You're not terrified when he goes to the rim with the ball, like, at all. He seems like he knows what he's doing. He's a better passer. And I would also say he always had great hands defensively. But one of the things that's happened, I think, with his sort of decrease in athleticism is he's gotten even craftier with his hands on defense. And he only played 20 minutes against the Hawks, but they were an incredibly disruptive 20 minutes. And he's as sort of salary filler in this trade, he's a really valuable rotation player to them right now. And when they win, when they're playing well, he is making a difference. He's a really disruptive defensive player, and I would say an efficient and fine to have on the court offensive player at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely him and Batum were always not just the salary filler that needed to happen, but also very helpful for the depth of this team and stuff. And he absolutely has improved as an offensive player. His handle's a little bit better. He had a couple nice finishes around the rim the past 2 games. He moves the ball. I think he's cutting a lot better than he had when he was here. Just seems to know his basketball IQ, I think, has gone up, and his place on the court. He just feels like he has a better feel for it. He's active on the offensive glass. He had 4 offensive rebounds last night. You don't see that from Covington very often. And obviously the defense is there. He affects so many shots with length and closeouts. He's a really good closeout guy. And I also like it's nice to have a guy after Niang left, and Batum is like this as well. But there's so many guys in the Sixers that are a little bit afraid to shoot if someone's nearby. Tobias mainly, Embiid, Maxi's obviously quite small, Pat Bev, etc. But like Covington shoots it high enough where he can get it off sort of George Niang style with a guy near him. And obviously he's a streaky shooter. People get frustrated with Covington. He's not an elite shooter, but he's good enough that like getting those shots off is still a decent shot.
He is a good shooter, and as we have found out before, to your point, he's just willing. And for a team that entering last night, the Sixers were, I think, 28th in the league in 3-point attempts per game, which is just not high enough.
It's not high enough, and they're not giving up a ton, but 16th in the league in threes given up, and it's just the 2 games that they lost in a row. I talked to Caitlin about this. They were 15 and 20 threes attempted down at a deficit to those teams. And it's just like, it's just hard to make that math work.
Yeah.
And I thought Boston in that game left a lot of points on the table with open threes that would normally go in. And so they got a little bit lucky there. But it's just, they have to be a more willing 3-point shooting team, or they're just going to struggle to compete offensively. And the offense looks good for the most part. I think it was pretty clunky last night at times.
Certainly in the first half, they started moving pretty well, I thought, in the second half.
Yeah.
I was texting with Mike O'Connor, the Ricky Zone, last night about Embiid in the first half. It's 2 things. One, the thing about Embiid is he's gotten to the point in his career where he knows how to get numbers even if he's not playing particularly well.
Yeah.
So at halftime, you can look at his stat line. You're like, wait a minute, he didn't play well, but this looks fine.
Yeah.
But then when he actually starts playing well, like he did in the second half, especially with passing,
Yeah.
you know, it's just a different world. When he and Maxi are actually playing well, it's a different world.
He really came alive in the second half, more decisive, just like taking what the defense gives him in like a quick, responsive type of way and just beating them in whatever way they're letting him. I find it, I also talked to Caitlin about this, but like Atlanta's a team that has two big men that are pretty good in Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu. And that's just not going to work against Joel Embiid. You're not going to succeed with like a pretty good big man. And Atlanta's a good matchup for Joel because he owns Capella, and they don't have, or they don't try to use, the sort of smalls on him that Indiana and Boston did. And I think, look, if you have Brook Lopez, if you have, Anthony Davis or whatever, although Embiid kind of owns him also, but you have to have a big and capable. Lopez and Horford are the main guys. But if you don't, I think the way to cover Joel is to put a guard on him and frustrate him and make him feel like the whole offense has to lose its flow to try to get Joel to beat this like 6'5" guy or whoever it is. I think that is like 100% the way to cover Joel. And every time teams don't do that, I am thankful, because there's nothing that 90% of big men in the league can do with Joel defensively. They just can't move him. And he can get wherever he wants. And his touch was good, and he's shooting really well from the mid-range again. And he's 11 of 11 from the line. He had that weird opening night, shot really poorly from the line, but he's been money since then. And he had a great passing game. Another one.
I actually think one of the best passing games of his career, if not the best. Mostly in terms of quick decision making and being. I don't know how many times it happened. Maybe it was only twice, but being the second pass in the chain that led to the assist. Mm-hmm. That has to be a quick decision. He gets the ball, he sees someone cutting, and he just has to go. Yeah. But he's making those decisions quicker. He has to be averaging 6 assists a game, I think.
Yeah, this is his 9th game of over 5 assists out of 12. He said he wanted to play more like this, and he is. So to his credit, he's doing that. I loved the behind the back pass to Covington in the corner. That was cool.
Yeah,
getting a little saucy. He wants to. Daryl said he wants to be Magic Johnson, and we are seeing that, I think, at times. And I really loved the play where it was a Embiid and Maxi dribble handoff. Maxi back to Embiid in the little pocket pass. Embiid catches it and instantly finds a Dan House under the basket for a layup. That was a really, really quick, beautiful, like flowing type of play that you can leverage. How much attention an Embiid Maxi pick and roll or dribble handoff is going to get you. And having willing cutters and finishers outside of that, and Joel making the pass quickly enough before the defense can recover is great. And the thing that I like about, I like that Joel. Did you see? I don't know if this was during your surgery blackout, but Kyle Neubeck tweeted that it was unacceptable effort from Joel.
Yeah, I saw it.
And then Joel liked it, which I think is good. I think that's some old school Joel motivation, which I like to see, and good for Kyle getting in there, getting that like. When Joel, look, against what I said before still holds, like against worse or middling, even like pretty good big men, Joel's just going to put him in the basket and do whatever he does against them. But against teams like Boston, really, like, you could say Milwaukee once they're fully optimized and Giannis is being used as a helper and getting his length all in there. Joel, when he is, especially Horford, let's just talk about with Horford. When he just faces up and does jab steps against a guy like Horford or a guy like Brook Lopez, who's really who has played him enough and can feel him and has the length to disrupt and the physicality to not just every time down get punished. I want to see Joel catch off movement more.
Yeah.
I feel like that is so much more successful rather than he's standing there. If he's catching on the move, like almost like set some screens for him, let him run through screens almost like a guard a little bit, just to get the defense not set. And it's not Joel standing in the same place trying to get position. The entry pass isn't coming. I would much rather see them try to be more creative with Joel, almost like let Joel do Iverson cuts. Like let Joel like catch off on the move and try to, take a pin down or something like that. I think I think especially in the playoffs, finding more creative ways to get Joel on the move so he can receive the ball without the defense already just knowing like, okay, he's at the nail, we can all pinch in or whatever and make it hard on him. I think that would be more successful. And they did it a couple times last night. I wonder how that develops going forward and how willing he is to want to do that kind of stuff.
The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by Briggs Auction, briggsauction.com. It's like the week. I feel like it's like the specific Briggs Auction week for the Ricky right now. So Briggs Auction is family-owned and operated auction house, I think 4 generations in Delco. Amazing auctions every week. But the Black Friday auction, which is up right now, is all sports memorabilia. So it's up right now through November 24th. I was scrolling through it earlier. Dude, it is, first of all, if you're I don't want to say sneakerhead, but like that's the word, right? If you're a sneaker person, sneakerhead, it's an incredible auction. I think there are 250 pairs of shoes. I actually did bid on a couple of those. I'm not going to tell you which ones. But also, right from the start off, you're looking at framed Iverson autograph poster. You're looking at Jalen Hurts autographs. You're looking at BG causing the fumble in the Super Bowl autographed photo. You're looking at hats, sneakers, game use stuff, baseball cards. It is fucking awesome. I don't know where it came from. I don't know. I know where some of this actually came from Eric Gregg's estate, the umpire. But there's one lot. There's Joel Embiid bobbleheads. There's limited edition Embiid and Maxi prints. I normally talk about all the stuff with Briggs Auction. For this one, I'm just talking about this auction. You just have to check it out. Over 500 lots of any kind of sports memorabilia and collectibles you could be interested in. Go to briggsauction.com or download the app in the App Store or Google Play. If you happen to be somebody who wants to offload some of this, downsizing, maybe you came into an inheritance of stuff and you want to sell the stuff, info@briggsauction.com, send that email. But right now, the sports memorabilia auction for Black Friday, briggsauction.com, briggsauction.com. Just a quick one thing on the thing you were talking on that one, on the behind the back pass to Covington. The other great pass first of all, that was one of those second passes. But that was a nice little bounce pass from Maxi off the pick and roll, like nice little Maxi Embiid, pocket pass, a bounce pass, and it landed exactly where it should be for Joel, which is something what Maxi has to.
They went to that a lot, and I thought it was interesting that they played, rotation wise, they've struggled in the non-Maxi minutes a lot.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Looking for that second ball handler, trying to find it. I think they were like, okay, Melton not working out. Let's try Pat Bev a little bit. Just kind of not working. I would love to see Tobias in all non-Maxi minutes. I think it's a little bit weird that they have them both. That Nurse has them out there, on the bench together sometimes. But in this game, Maxi played the entire third quarter with Joel.
Yeah.
And then went to the all bench lineup, and that strangely succeeded. I don't know how consistently it will, but the Tobias minutes were really good. Got to his mid-range, hitting those shots. He had 2 dunks last night. I don't know if you noticed this, Tobias, our friend.
He's dunked more. Now, I don't know pace this year versus last year, but it seems like he's dunking more this year.
Well, let me give you some stats, my friend.
All right.
I think actually I wrote it down last night. Did he have 3 dunks last night?
I don't know.
When I wrote it down last night, it said I saw he had 11 dunks in 12 games, but Basketball Reference has him at hold 12. So I might have missed the 3rd dunk last night. So 12 dunks in 12 games. That is very good. His career high in dunks is 55. So extrapolate that over the full season. Obviously, we are very pro dunk Tobias podcast. We talked to him about this when he came on the pod last year. He is shooting 75% at the rim this year. That is a career high, and it feels that way. Yes. Finishing with both hands. Getting really good seals, cutting inside. I think he's just moving a lot more. I would love to see those numbers where you're like miles per game run or whatever it is for each player. I bet Tobias is running more than he has, at least with his time with the Sixers. He's just been really good. He's just been really good, really efficient. Like getting his spots. He was 3 of 5 from 3 last night. That was nice. He's had over 15 points in every game. He's been incredibly consistent. I thought his rebound has been better. Now, I do think that defensively, one-on-one, he is solid. He has become a solid player. He is so bad at closing out, dude. He is so bad. Anytime that he has to like help out of the corner to like a rolling big when he's pinching in to tag a big, and then the ball gets swung to the corner, it feels like he has to take a bus to get there. It is so slow, unbelievable. And it's like, look, everybody's got strength. He's not a quick twitch athlete, our friend Tobias. And he did have a pretty pathetic lob attempt to Danuel House in transition.
Oh, that was maybe the worst lob attempt I've ever seen.
It was really rough. It was
going to happen, by the way.
You knew it was going to happen. I mean, that's the thing with Tobias. He's been so good at getting downhill in transition, and it's really just for himself. Like any Tobias fast break is really nobody else needs to be there. It's going to be him, or the play's not going to get made. But yeah, that was during a stretch in I think the second quarter where they looked really horrendous. Some really ugly, ghastly transition plays for both teams. But I think Tobias has been good. Speaking of ghastly transition plays, Melton, can you guess what D'Anthony Melton is shooting at the rim this season between 0 and 3 feet?
I don't
League
know
average
what.
is like somewhere in like the 60s.
What is he? Well, he's always been terrible. I don't know. What is he shooting?
22.7%. This is thanks to Trill Bro Dude who brought this up on Twitter. 22.7% at the rim. And it feels that way. I wrote last night, at what point do you want guys to have confidence and like go do your thing and shoot through your mistakes? But like he's a good shooter from the outside. He's shooting 42% from 3. But he's shooting 22.7% at the rim. And at a certain point, you just got to go like, stop doing it. Stop doing it. If you can't dunk it, don't try. And you could make a really pathetic compilation of all the times that Melton has tried and failed this season in 12 games to finish at the rim. It's been really rough. But the threes, he has been hot from 3 lately. That's been really nice to see. He's also they're probably their best like outlet passer. He's a really solid player except for then the threes come and go, and he's helpful in rebounding. He had a really nice huge block on DeJounte in transition. That was nice. I feel like all of his threes come off of a big offensive rebound, which is nice to see momentum wise. But man, the finishing at the rim, he's just got to stop. He's got to stop trying. It's gonna get better. Obviously, it can't get worse. 22% is insane. And he's an athletic guy, and he has pretty nice touch. He shoots pretty well from the line. He's got there's no reason for it aside from decision making, I guess. And we can't keep living like this. He's got to stop. He's got to stop doing it.
So I wanted to read you an email that came about you, and this is, I think, the other big headline from the game. This comes from Jeremy, writes RickySanchez@gmail.com. Mike, I was at the Sixers-Hawks game. How intense was your erection when you realized that Nick Nurse was leaving Jaden Springer and down the stretch in the fourth quarter? Pretty
big, man. Pretty cool for that. I mean, he played a ton of minutes in the Pacers game.
He did, yeah.
And he played 20. That's back-to-back games where he's played the most minutes out of any bench guy. He played like 14 or 15 minutes in a row, really, which is wild. Look, he is going to make mistakes. He's going to look lost sometimes on offense, but when you play him with the starters and you don't have to go like, hey, it's you and Dan House and Pat and Korkmaz and B-Ball, like, then you just go like, hey, you're the hustle guy and a catch and shoot open threes guy with around Joel and Maxi. Like, that's really, really helpful, especially when Oubre's out, because he can get those easy looks from Joel and Maxi that Oubre did, and he can score so quickly and so powerfully. He's just so fucking strong, man. It's crazy.
Well, and he can, when in doubt, when he's in those lineups, when in doubt, just pass to a player that's to another guy.
Yes,
you know
and he will get into his. And I think he's a better player than some of those like isolation moments have been. Like he's had 3 opportunities or whatever to do that, and he's like tripping over himself. He's obviously a better player than he's showing in that regard, but he doesn't have to go like, okay, time to get into my Evan Turner mid-range situation. He can just give it to Joel and get out of the way. Embiid is starting to trust him cutting from the opposite wing. I thought that's really nice to see. I do find it interesting that he only wants to do reverse dunks. He doesn't know that you can dunk regular. You have to dunk when you're not looking. That's
as long as he dunks.
As long as he dunks, is fine.
Yeah.
His hang time on blocks, I think, is absolutely surreal to watch. He's up there for so long. And I love watching him guard Trey. Like Trey's going to grift him for some fouls, and Springer's going to get called for fouls that aren't fouls just because he's so strong and guys bounce off of him and they're going to think like, oh, that had to be a foul because you just, tackled an NBA player, but really it's just bouncing off him. I really loved it. He had a nice drive that he had a nice lead for Tobias at the end. He is a better passer than he has shown in the NBA, and it's different when you're in college when you have the ball in your hands all the time. But it's the kind of thing where hopefully in spurts he can keep showing that as he gets more confident and playing with these guys for longer. It's really important that Nick sticks with him. Like Marcus Morris is so bad. He's so bad. He misses every single rotation.
Well, he only played 2 minutes. It's over. I think
he got hurt.
Morris thing is over.
He got hurt though.
You're right.
It wasn't.
You're right.
People are like, oh, who cares? He played 2 minutes, but it's like, no, he like hurt his knee. Went knee to knee with somebody. He can't slide his feet. He has no defensive instincts whatsoever. His reaction time is totally shot. He's got. There's not a single positive thing you can get out of Marcus Morris. Thus far, he has played. I'm sure if he played more, he would hit shots sometimes, whatever. But like, he's so bad. He cannot be on the court at all. And Springer, like, he's gonna make mistakes, but he's a guy that you can go to for those kind of extra effort hustle plays. 3 offensive rebounds, a steal, and 2 blocks. Those kinds of plays, he's just stealing you possessions. And also there's still some weirdness. Like he got called for a very bizarre offensive rebounding on his own dunk attempt because it like
it was wrong. Out. But then there was a makeup call immediately that was also
for
wrong.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like I think he's still making mistakes, but I think he's gotten weirdly snake bit on a couple bizarre moments and plays and like bad travel calls and that kind of thing. He just got to play. He's just got to play. He's got to find a way to do it because I think whether it's play so that he can become seen as a helpful trade asset in a sweetener type deal with Marcus Morris's contract or against the right matchup in the postseason. I think he's an interesting player and has proven worthy of an NBA rotation and he could help this team.
The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast brought to you by Abby's T-shirt. The pre-order for the Spike Eskin is a Liar T-shirt ends this weekend, and then it'll never be available again. It is a beautiful design from our very own artist, Abby, inspired by you-know-what, of the woman holding up the Spike Eskin is a Liar shirt on a long-sleeve baby blue Comfort Colors T-shirt with maroon art. You can order right now. Go to kineticskateboarding.com and search Rights to Ricky Sanchez. There it is. It's a good one. Only the second Abby shirt for purchase ever.
If this girl came to us and said, I want to cut, what do we say?
I would give her every dollar we earn.
Okay, great.
Every dollar of profit, obviously.
Okay, great.
Inspired by that girl. It isn't that girl. I just want to say it is inspired by that girl. I want to be clear. And then also brought to you by Fly the Process Los Angeles. For the first time, our annual road trip is going to the West Coast. We are going to visit the System for Sixers Clippers March 24th. We'll leave on Friday, come back on Monday, stay at a hotel, an awesome hotel right down the street. We will all sit together for the game. Thank you, Clippers, for playing along. You will all get the Fly the Process T-shirt, which has that awesome logo done by our very own Tanner. If you're flying from Philly, just go to rightstreakysanchez.com/fly, and you can reserve your spot, by the way, for $150. And Joe will do payment plans to pay off the rest of it. But if you're coming from somewhere else, not Philadelphia, or you're already on the West Coast, and we have found out we have a bunch of West Coast listeners, and you want to go, you want to sit with us, you want to go to the party, blah, 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 all that kind of other stuff that comes along with it, send an email to joe@fansofphilly.com.
I got to do that, by the way.
Yeah, send an email.
Otherwise,
I'm
going to show up and Joe's going to be like, you didn't.
Yeah, where's your wristband? Yeah, where's your laminate? Yeah.
Kick my ass out.
joe@fansofphilly.com. Joe will hook you up with any sort of custom package you need. There are some people who want to book the travel themselves and just get the tickets. I don't know. Seems like more trouble than it's worth, but whatever you want to do. So rightstreakysanchez.com/fly. We're looking forward to it. It is in March, and that's about us and Fans of Philly. I wanted to move on to star hunting. Anything else from
just a couple. We should mention Dan House had a Dan House game.
Yeah. Well, his confidence his absolute overconfidence will occasionally lead to a game like that, and it was awesome.
It was nice. It was nice to see. Great. I don't think he stands like he's a shooter. He should be just like a classic 3-and-D guy, and I think for a shooter, he doesn't stand on the 3-point line enough. Yeah. He seems to be just like kind of running around in there. And I don't think his defense is that good. It was helpful last year in the sense that like they had nobody like him. And now that the Sixers have more guys, his defense is like, oh, it's actually just, he's just sort of that size and reasonably athletic. But the offense was really helpful, man. He strung some good minutes together. So he had finished. He had a corner 3 off a Joel drive. He had a couple nice drives himself, a good scoop finish with the left, especially during that non-Maxi, non-Embiid lineup at the beginning of the fourth. Big recovery block to stop an alley-oop. Happy to have him here, and it seems like one of the guys, maybe the most guy that the bench is happiest to see succeed.
House. Yeah,
everybody seems like the most pumped up when Dan House does something, and that's cool, man. It's good. You're gonna need those games. That's what wing depth does for you.
Yep.
I do find that the spacing has been kind of weird in this game, in the last couple of games. Well, it feels like there's been a lot of passing in confined spaces, which you don't see very often. Like Pat Beverly set a screen for Jaden, like in the lane when Joel was also in the lane. It was very bizarre. But the offense is still third in the league. They have the second best point differential in the league. I think the defense misses Oubre and Batum a lot.
The offense misses Oubre and Batum a lot,
for sure.
Both willing shooters. Batum obviously a very willing passer as well, and
Oubre is going to be. Yes. Now that he's missed some games as a passer, 5 was high. Yeah. I was excited about five games of 5+ assists. I think
because he's never had 5 in his whole career.
Yes, he has.
No, he has not.
He definitely has.
He has not. No, he has not. CJ looked it up. CJ, did you not look it up that he has not had 5 total games?
Oh, I thought you said you had zero games with 5 assists.
Oh, no. He has not had 5 though.
Total. That's a lot. That would be. Yeah. That is a knock against my prediction that I made on the fly because I was excited about Oubre playing within the context of this offense. But get me down to 3 because he's missed some time. 3 games of 5+ assists for Kelly Oubre this season. I'd feel good about that. We should wager something on that.
Yeah. Well, just as long as it's not a tattoo or anything, I'm happy.
No tattoos.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about Maxi that much. I thought it was a fine Maxi game. He's just doing his thing. Yeah, I think I would like him to be, broadly more. There's times when he just doesn't treat himself like he's the best option on this offense on this team, and he just is. He just is. Like, as far as like guy having the ball in his hands and doing something with it, it's Maxi. And Joel just needs a little bit more help, or the defense can see him against it. But Maxi can beat anybody off the dribble, and I just wish he took 13 shots last night. That's just not enough. Like, he's really, really good. He sometimes like disappears for a quarter. It's just we are 8 assists, 2 turnovers, very solid. I love him. He's great, but these are the growing pains that you're going to get with a guy that is stepping up in as far as size of role.
He's going to have to do it earlier than expected. Like he's going to have to be better than he was going to be even with all of the growth. You weren't expecting to lean on him in this particular role for another year or two.
Yeah.
So he's just going to have to get there.
Yeah, and I still want to see some more of that in-between game from him. Not just blow-bys and step-backs. Either blow-bys for finish at the rim. I do love when he gets to the rim. I almost want like an NFL film style, like slow motion of this. When he like unfurls the ball, he keeps it like here and then unfurls it and extends it to the rim like around a shot blocker. It's always very cinematic to me. I tweeted this thing. This is maybe one of my more hot takey things I've tweeted. I think that he is the most universally beloved athlete in Philadelphia since Iverson. And I know that I can hear how that sounds crazy, but I think a lot of it is positionally. I think obviously people love Jalen Hurts, but a quarterback is just going to be more scrutinized. I think baseball players will.
Hurts was drafted. I do have a take on this take because I think it's interesting. But Hurts was drafted amid controversy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Hurts was almost immediately, the starting quarterback, which is different than the position. So I agree with you. He is as far as like total Q rating, negative versus positive, Maxi over Hurts. I would agree.
I think that Embiid has obviously too much responsibility on him, and big guys are just not going to be as beloved maybe ever in any respect, or just especially in Philly. It just feels like Iverson set the tone for like what this city loves, and Maxi is doing it, plus all of the also being like the most universally liked person maybe in sports history. Just he seems like just the best. And so I think baseball players are all out. Certainly pitchers are out because they have bad games.
Not.
I think Utley's pretty close. But I think
I would say Utley and Dawkins are the two that
Utley, Dawkins, and Kelsey would be my picks. I think just baseball by nature of the sport, they fail more.
Sure.
And they have games and have stretches where they are really bad because it's baseball. And so I feel like that's a little bit tough, but Utley's a good one. I hadn't thought too much about that, but Dawkins and Kelsey were the other ones I would consider. But and Maxi's early in it, and I jumped the gun, but I was just like, there's nobody that doesn't love Maxi and is appealed by it. And also Dawkins, even like, Kelsey just doesn't do enough
stuff. He doesn't score.
He does, the highlights of Kelsey are not. I mean, I think partly because he's been around for so long, and because you see him like as a pulling guard and stuff, and he's famous because of his brother and because of like the rivalry and all that stuff, and the podcast. He's definitely beloved. I'm not saying it's not, but I think like as a point guard guy with the ball in his hands, young, smiling little guy, Maxi I think is up there.
The other thing that he has going for him, which to me has until the end of this season, is something that we talked about with Daryl in that he's also expectation-wise. Yeah. Like, we go into these playoffs and he has an uneven playoffs or something, all of a sudden, Tyrese Maxey, you don't hear a lot of, up until this point, Tyrese Maxey needs to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It was, I hope Tyrese Maxey X, Y's, and Z's. Yeah. But now that he's playing this way and they're relying on him, things will change. But I think at this point in his trajectory, it's hard to find anyone who's like, I don't really like Maxi.
Yeah, no, nobody. It's impossible to. All the kids like him because he's that. Like all the people that have been around a long time like him because it's like, oh man, he can dribble and he's fast. We have nobody like that, and he can shoot, and it's crazy. He's the man. It really is like I did a podcast with Dan Devine for the Ball Don't Lie Network and on Yahoo, and he brought up like this offseason and stuff, and this is a good transition into star hunting, but like. We were in such a bad place this offseason, dude.
Yeah.
Bro,
the worst.
I was pitching because I thought we were in such hell. I was pitching Jordan Poole reclamation project.
Yeah, I remember.
I was like, well, they don't have any other. How else are they going to get anybody that's helpful? And it was like those are the kinds of like gambles you have to make. And Maxi being this good and finally getting those 2 first-round picks for Harden, and as well as wing depth. And Nick Nurse's offense has just like totally taken the weight off of all of our chests, even though there was a tough couple of games last week. And there's going to be struggles, and Daryl mentioned it. It's not going to all be great. They're not going to win 8 in a row all the time, but Maxi being this good, Joel being this willing of a passer, the offense looking good, having wing depth, it is so great. I'm glad that they didn't trade for Jordan Poole. He looks so miserable in DC, man. Yeah. He is really not trying to play any level of good basketball at all. He just wants to get his buckets. But
thank you to the Celtics, because without the Celtics, we would not have Tyrese Maxey. We thank Mike Muscala a lot. Yeah. But of course, we got Fultz from the Celtics, and then we took Fultz and traded him to the Magic and got that first-round pick. So
thank you to COVID.
Yeah, thank you to COVID, and also thank you to the Celtics, even in my sort of rankings in terms of things that I like, COVID and the Celtics. But I'd like to thank the Celtics, who could have had Tyrese Maxey if they didn't make that trade. So thank you, Celtics. Before we get to star hunting, let's talk about our sponsor, Body Bio. Go to bodybio.com. I should be on sodium butyrate right now. Probably would have kept me more regular through this process. Also, by the way, Mike from Body Bio said he was going to send me some stuff for my recovery, and I don't have anything here. What is this guy? First of all, he lied to you about being an influencer, and now he lied to me about free stuff for my hip recovery?
That's
what
true.
are we talking about? Do you want to be regular? Do you want to be regular? Being regular is nice. Do you want to get rid of the bloat you feel? Do you want, do you want your gastrointestinal system to be working at top optimization?
Yes.
I want you to go to bodybio.com. I want you to take the product sodium butyrate. I want you to put it in the cart. I want you to use code Mike's Tummy for 20% off. And I want you to take sodium butyrate, pill or two with every meal. And I want you to tell me if after a week or two, you don't notice a huge difference. Quite simply, it is a natural postbiotic. It helps with all of those different sort of symptoms that you're looking a gut supplement to help you with. Take the sodium butyrate. And something else that I noticed in my hip recovery, one thing that has helped has been Elite, because I've had to drink a lot of water. When you drink a lot of water, you also need the right amount of electrolytes. Doing these weird little exercises for my hip and stuff, I originally was getting cramps in my hamstring and cramps in my calf. I thought to myself, oh shit, I stopped taking Elite. I started taking Elite again, and now I'm doing my hip recovery exercises perfectly. Elite is your hydration solution. It's only electrolytes. It's not artificial colors. It's not artificial flavors. It's not extra calories. None of that shit. It is just the electrolytes. Put a little bit in your water in the morning, in the evening. You're going to be completely correctly hydrated. Go to bodybio.com. Use code Mike's Tummy for 20% off any order. Bodybio.com, use code Mike's Tummy. So for star hunting, I always play, people ask what the music is. The music is from Mindhunter. I thought it was funny to use for Star Hunter, to use the Mindhunter music. I'm going to keep using it, but I can't do it because I can't sit in my normal podcasting chair because of my hip replacement surgery. I can't use it. So no star hunting music this time. I know everybody's really disappointed. But here's a call that I think will kick off Star Hunter. And Mike, I want you to allow me to set this up for you as we talk about this player. 833 Lickface is the phone number.
Hey, Spike Mike, CJ, Mr. President. I'm calling, hat in hand, begging, pleading, please stop talking about Pascal Siakam as a trade candidate. This guy sucks. He's bad. We're talking about a guy who's a career 17 points, a career 7 boards, 5 assists. We have Pascal Siakam at home. Their names are Tobias Harris and Paul Reed. What is Pascal better at than Tobias? Offensively, he's better at pick and pop long twos. He's got a better touch sort of around the rim outside of the restricted area. That's it. That's it. Tobias is a better three-point shooter and higher volume. He's a better free throw shooter. He's just as good of a rebounder. And defensively, there is nothing that Pascal Siakam does better defensively than Paul Reed. Anything Pascal does on defense, Paul Reed can do just as well. Paul Reed is a better rebounder. Paul Reed is a sturdier defender. He's more switchable. I mean, what are we talking about? Pascal sucks. He broke Joel's face. Why do we want this bum? If you're talking about Raptors as trade possibilities, the list starts and ends with OG. Stop talking about Pascal Siakam. He sucks. Thank you.
Oh.
And one more thing about Pascal Siakam. This man makes $37 million a year. He makes literally $1 million less than Tobias. Why? Why would we want him? He's a fake all-star. The only reason he's an all-star is because somebody got hurt, and then the next guy up was a little bitch who didn't want to return Dave Silver's call. I mean, this guy sucks. He sucks. He's bad. He's bad vibes. Ah!
Okay. So then I will follow that up with, I was like, well, let me do a little investigation, rather taking career, and thank you to CJ for the Star Hunter music. I'm like, let's not talk about career numbers. Let's talk about the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, obviously the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Don't really.
So
apply.
let's talk about last 3 seasons. So obviously, the counting stats for Pascal Siakam as a primary-ish scorer are higher. Pascal Siakam 22 points versus Tobias' 17. 7.9 boards versus Tobias' 6.4. 5 assists versus 3. Okay. But then when you look at the rate stats, Tobias shoots 50% versus Pascal's 47.7. Tobias, 38% from 3 versus Pascal's 31%. Free throw percentage, Tobias, 87% versus Pascal's 77%. Effective field goal percentage, Tobias, 55.6% and Pascal, 51.2%. And the only thing I will do is I went back through Siakam's career, and obviously his 2 most efficient seasons were the 2 seasons where the Raptors were the best. Mm-hmm. So when Kawhi was there, and then the year after Kawhi was there, he had good seasons from an efficiency standpoint. Still not Tobias level efficiency, but better seasons. So you could make the argument, okay, if Pascal is on a team where he is the third option, maybe he's better. But here's my final thing. And then I leave it to you. I'm sorry, this is a lot of the caller and me, but I just want to present it. I never thought Pascal Siakam was good. Never. He never passed the eye test for me. And then in recent weeks, I've been like, Pascal over OG, whatever. I don't want Pascal Siakam. He is not a max contract player. If he was exactly what they needed as a max contract player, sort of like overpaying the guy that you need to get you over the hump, I agree. I agree with the guy. I agree with him. I'm out on Pascal. That's my statement.
Well, so the thing that Pascal is better than Tobias at, he's a way better passer. He's a way better like read and react player. Like on the court, he's better in transition, all that stuff. I think he's probably a better defender, more versatile defender.
Yes, he's a better defender.
Comparing him to Paul Reed is Tobias and Paul Reed are not similar in any way. I think you could play Pascal as like a small 5, whereas you wouldn't want to do that with Tobias. I think Pascal and B-Ball would play together as like a 4-5 rather than either or. The efficiency numbers, I think, I was going to make the point that you made of like, well, they don't have much shooting, Toronto. Never really has.
Yeah.
And he's
a lot more theoretical shooting than real shooting.
Yeah, he's being required to do a lot more than maybe he should. And if you get him into the, he's playing currently, him and Scotty are playing like the number 1 guys on that team. And Scotty's been pretty good and the shooting's gotten better. But he's much better served as being the third type of guy. I do wonder if like Tobias fitting in as well as he has. And, some of that is just he's making shots. I still would love him to take more threes. He's actually taking fewer threes this year than last year by quite a bit, which is tough. He's making them at a higher clip, but he is taking fewer of them, although he's getting the line more. You wonder if like if Tobias being as good as he's been sort of negates the need for a Siakam type at that position, and do you want somebody that
certainly
can shoot?
as the trade, which Pascal Siakam would be.
He of the guys that like could potentially become available, and for what? And then the idea of like if you trade for Siakam, he's expiring, you're going to sign him to what will look like a max contract. He'd be in the middle of that for me. Like he's not high on that list, but he's not like totally off the table for me because I do think that he would be a helpful basketball player, and him and Nurse have a relationship, and they supposedly like each other and like working with each other. I think he'd be helpful. I like the Cameroon connection with Embiid, sort of just, I guess,
they can talk about
narratively. I don't know. I think like in the playoffs as the third guy, I would trust Siakam to like go get you a bucket at the rim or get fouled more than I would trust Tobias, who doesn't have quite as much like herky-jerky scoring to him. But Tobias has been great this year, and Siakam hasn't been, and so it's projecting. He's certainly not a guy that I'd be like, definitely got to get him. Go trade whatever you can for him right now.
Well, and to be clear, it's less to me about is Siakam better than Tobias, because I think probably on the whole the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I think the question more is if you're going to make your all-in trade, can that player be for a person who you can actually have a debate whether he's better than Tobias? And I think the answer to that is no. So
I was saying that this is a role reversal of sorts, kind of, because when I was all summer, you were making fun of me for saying that the Raptors should trade to Siakam for Harden.
Well, but that was also a ridiculous trade.
Disagree.
But still, yeah.
Disagree.
And here's the other player I wanted to bring up, because everyone has been bringing him up for Star Hunter. We'll also do this with a call, 833-LickFace.
Spike, Mike, CJ, Daryl. I'm loving the Sixers right now. I'm all the way back in. This is Corey, by the way. So I have a couple ideas for the Star Hunter. Not really Star Hunter, but more like good player hunter. I don't think any of the stars available really will fit that well, and I kind of love what we have going on, and think that we don't need to make a huge move. So my first guy would be Alex Caruso from the Bulls. He's a nice 3-and-D player. I think he would kind of be a little bit better version of Melton and really help add to the wing depth. Awesome defensive player, can shoot, can ball handle a little bit. So that's idea number one. And then for the second guy, I was thinking, this one's for Mike. What's going on with Jaden Ivey in Detroit? He's kind of like fell out of favor. Might be a guy worth taking a flyer on that could help fill that too as well. So there's my thoughts, guys. Love the pod. Appreciate it. Talk to you later. Bye.
More on. So it's funny. He brought up Caruso, and MOC. A lot of people brought up Caruso. MOC was talking about he'd be perfect, and I texted MOC, and I'm like, is he really any better than Melton? And he said, look, he's like, Alex Caruso is the best perimeter defender in the league.
Yeah.
And he's a much better ball handler and passer than Melton. But he is famously an unwilling three-point shooter. So we're taking, for what it's worth, probably a willing three-point shooter, replacing him with an unwilling three-point shooter for a guy who is not a great ball handler. He's just fine at a good enough ball handler and a really good perimeter defender. I'm sorry. Alex Caruso is one of those players that we can fixate on another team. The big trade cannot be for Alex Caruso, especially if it's in lieu of DeAnthony Melton. I would rather have
Melton. I don't think it'd be Melton for Caruso. I think in the same way that like Melton and Springer played together last night, that you could play both of those guys together. Caruso is averaging.
He will cost 2 firsts.
That is what I'm interested in. We'll talk about what it would cost in a sec. But the Caruso's averaging 4.7 threes per 36. He's shooting 50% on them this year. His numbers 3-point wise are like similar to Tobias. He's not
who doesn't shoot enough threes.
Who doesn't shoot enough threes for sure, and that's like an issue. But it's not like he's not TJ McConnell or anything.
Sure.
And he's a pretty solid ball handler. Like he would do a better job of running that second unit, than whatever. But you're also buying him right now at the height of his value. I think his contract is 2 years, like $9 million each year. It's a crazy good value contract. I think there's going to be a lot of teams in the league that are going to try to trade for him. And I do think that if the Bulls decide to move on, which they might not want to do because they're weird and they love living in the morass nothing of a mediocre team, I do think the bidding would get pretty high. But if you put him on this team and just said like, okay, the starters regularly, say you trade like, Korkmaz and KJ Martin and Springer for him or something like that, and like a pick or two, then that's a lot for him. That's a lot.
Somebody's going to trade 2 picks.
I'm interested to see it. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to pay the Caruso price, but I don't want Caruso to go to a team that we're going to have to compete with.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be a little bit like queasy either way. But I do think like Maxi, Melton, Batum, Harris, Embiid, say that's your starters. And then Oubre, Reed, Covington. If the 9th guy in your rotation or whatever, those 4 guys, and Caruso, that's a really, really good 9. That's a really, really good, versatile 9 that you have a tough time scoring on. I think that is maybe worth doing. So it's a tricky thing. But I also,
Also, we're gonna be able to wait to see how good the Sixers are in February too, to see how close they are. I'm curious what the next 2 months have.
I wonder. I think that there's probably going to be. There's not that many teams that are trying to be bad this year. Still, I think the Wizards are. The Pistons have lost 10 games in a row, but they are not as bad as they seem.
And the Spurs, by the way, are actively. Maybe not trying to be bad, but they're certainly not trying to win games. That is not.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but they feel like they should. The Spurs have the worst point differential in the league right now, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. The Blazers and the Pistons really are the only two teams that are like trying to be bad. Or sorry, the Blazers and the Wizards rather. And so everybody else, I think Memphis wants to kind of dig out of their hole so they can be at least close enough when Ja comes back. The Spurs want to have success around Wembanyama. I have no idea what the Jazz are doing. The Hornets have been bad long enough. The Bulls are the Bulls. Who knows? So I think some team will decide like there is value in getting low here and ending it early and then going by mid-December, hey, we just want to trade somebody and get some picks before like our guy gets hurt or something and capitalize on some value. And I don't know who that's going to be. So I understand the idea of waiting until February, but I do think something might click beforehand, and you'll have to make that decision. Like, is this the guy? And that's that's what we keep talking about with Daryl. I wrote about it on the website. Like, when is the time to make the trade? If this is your B+ trade, like, do you hold it together until then? Like, it's a really tricky question to have.
And but I also think that the most valuable pieces are not going to be available to the deadline because they're not going to. Those teams won't think that they will be able to get the best value until the deadline.
Yeah, for
somebody just brought up Brogdon in the comments. Like, I don't want Brogdon. I would rather not have Brogdon than trade for Brogdon now. I would rather just wait until this team can get along fine.
Brogdon, they're not going to trade for Brogdon. He's got $22 million next year. They're not trading for Brogdon.
So. Honestly, I'm in pain, but I need to get to these two things. I just need to. I'm sorry. I like the scar hurts, but I need to get to Oubre and I need to get to the system. The Oubre thing can be quick because I don't know when you did the pod with Caitlin, had the TMZ video come out?
Yeah, CJ played it for me on the podcast.
Okay. So here's my only statement on Kelly Oubre is I appreciate how much you had mentioned stan culture, which I never really thought about as a phrase before, just the need to defend everybody all the time with teams. Kelly Oubre's been great since he got here. But I have no dedication in my heart to Kelly Oubre. Here's my two main points on Kelly Oubre. Number one, there are too many differences between the original story and the current story for him not to be lying about something. He's definitely lying about something.
I don't know about that's true. You get hit if you get hit by a car in a city that you're not that familiar in.
Where's the bike come from?
He said he said he was riding his bike?
No. Originally it was pedestrian. It was that the cops.
But that's not his story. That was the story that was reported, right?
Well, but where do you think the story came from? Who do you think gives that story to Woj? It's not the hospital. It's not the police. It's the team or the agent. 100%. Originally it was that he was, and I want to get to my second point of this, but originally it was pedestrian, treated at the scene, when now the story after TMZ comes out, which definitely, by the way, TMZ got the ring video from Oubre. That is very clear. So the story went from treated at the scene to wife called ambulance 2 hours later. No bike to bike, broken ribs and out for significant time to bruise. There's just too many differences and then the fact that if it did happen abroad at Locust, one of those businesses would have video of it. They just wouldn't.
But he didn't. I would look, if I get hit by a fucking car, I would not know. I would not remember. And if I'm in a city that I don't know, I would not remember where I was, and I would probably try to walk home. And Alyssa would be like, "Why didn't you go to the fucking hospital, you moron?"
I guess, but it's different. I'm not saying that again.
I just think that the story that is reported. I don't think we can assume that Kelly is the reason why they're different. And it's not like someone just heard it from somebody and then the report was wrong and bad. And things change over the course of that kind of
Shams do not guess. They get the stories from the team or the player or the agent 100% every time. So my other thing is,
I just think something could have been lost in translation in like a very. I'm not saying it. I'm not saying one thing or the other. I just don't think we can assume anything because like the cops are wrong all the time, and like a story being broken in a situation during like a hectic moment. Like Kelly could have told his agent like, oh, I got hit by a car, and he didn't say biker. It was like this. It's there's more like, oh, this thing got lost in translation or like negligence or whatever versus like malice, like some concocted story situation.
Or known BMX biker Kelly Oubre was fucked up on his bike, knows that it's a violation of his current NBA contract, and didn't want to deal with it. So that goes to my second point. I actually just don't care.
Yeah, I don't care either. That's the most important thing is I don't care either.
I don't care if he lied. So unless he was doing something to hurt another person, illegal, blah, blah, unless the lie reveals that Kelly Oubre was beating the shit out of a kid as he stole his candy, and the kid, the kid called his dad, and the dad beat up Kelly Oubre, sure. I might have a problem with it. So overall, my 2 points are, look, it definitely seems like there's something fishy here. But the second thing is, I don't really care that much. I don't care to ever know the answer, even though I think it is super interesting to know the answer. I think the fact that there is a YouTube video of Kelly Oubre talking about how much he loves BMX biking, and you never know what's going to happen when you're on your BMX bike, and all of a sudden there was a security video of him with a BMX bike that was not in the original story.
I don't know. Just because you like, if you got into...
Where'd the bike come from?
It just wasn't it's not like there's video of him walking and then getting hit and then there's a bike suddenly. The original story didn't have a bike in it. Yeah. And that's not like Kelly released a report. His story didn't. It's not like there was like the Kelly thing and then the Kelly thing changed. It's just like this was a hectic moment in this sort of like crisis type of moment. Details get lost and like fudged and forgotten about in that like hectic time. I can't assume that he's lying about it. I think it's a very Sixers story. I also don't care.
I'm not assuming that he's lying. I think what I'm doing is looking at the evidence we've been creating.
But that's saying like the report was wrong, and in this
if you didn't
assumption
like
is
the
you're blaming him for it.
If it was Josh Harris, if it was Michael Rubin, who had these two differences in the stories, what would you say?
I would say it is funny. This whole thing is funny. Hopefully it's not
fishy. That's all.
It's weird. For sure it's weird. I just can't assume that like, hey, this guy says he got hit by a car when he was on a bike and then he went home and went to the hospital after.
And
then they're being like
some car when he was on a bike.
Well, he didn't say anything. He hasn't spoken to the media yet.
Yeah, but the story comes from him.
But that's a journalistic issue. That's not a Kelly Oubre is lying about his story situation. It's weird. It's all weird, and there's like a bunch of like circumstantial weirdness. But I don't really like. I feel nothing for Kelly Oubre aside from like he's been good this season, and I like how he plays on a basketball court a lot of times. I'm not standing Kelly here. I'm just saying like I think that there's more reasonable explanations for why this thing looks like this than just he's lying and concocting some sort of like crazy story because of like X, Y, or Z crazy thing.
I think that is fair. I think you could certainly come up with ways that it would happen. I think if you were to look at it, if you were to divorce yourself completely and look at the two stories, I think you've conceded this at some point. You'd look and you go, well, that's funny.
Sure, something's weird. Yeah, for sure.
Okay,
but there's also explanations for it.
Okay. I guess. I just don't like brainwashed by Men in Black guys.
Yeah, I don't know that that's what I'm saying necessarily.
Will Smith could have come and used one of those pens, and
I think it's just reasonable that like he told his agent he got in an accident, and then his agent told Woj, and then the bike issue was not there. Yeah, he was like in the hospital and is texting about it. Like it seems very easy for a detail to get missed, and certainly for a guy who doesn't really know the city that well, living there for like a month.
You would think the agent would have cleared it up by now, rather than leaking a video to TMZ without a comment.
Yeah, I don't know his agent is. I don't know what they're doing. But
if it was Tobias Harris's dad, maybe we wouldn't have
Tobias would have been all over it. Tobias's dad would have stopped the car.
So
people are doing like he's 6'8". How could you hit him in the ribs? And it's like, why are we? No, you're not fucking crime scene investigators. Like,
yeah, for sure.
He could have bent down. Like there's a million other things. Like everybody's just trying to look for malice in someone's behaviors and
this is
going
how
like
we
that
found-
story doesn't make sense. And it's like if every point of the story like made exact perfect sense, then it felt like you'd be like, it's a little too neat. He must have like created it or something. And it's just, I don't know. He said he got hit by a car. He probably got hit by a car. And also, like, I don't know if his minimum contract would get voided if he's dirt biking. Like, I don't think the Sixers would do that.
No, well, I mean, they have. I don't know what his specific contract says, but there are very specific terms in NBA in sports team contracts about what sport things you can participate in. And I know for a fact 2 separate occasions about players who were injured doing one specific thing that
I'm sure that stuff happens all the time.
do. Yeah,
I'm sure that stuff happens.
And then
all
we
the time.
see, they got. I will say this: there was a player. I'm not going to say who it was. A Philadelphia Eagles player, and it was long enough ago, that was definitely 100% injured in a mosh pit at a Metallica concert, 100%, and then was later turned an ankle in practice and had never been at a practice. And
Dominique Foxworth talked about this on a podcast where he said, I think it was in college, I think he said. I think it was in college, where a guy tore his ACL playing basketball. And then he's like, "Hey, can you go to the practice field with me, run some reps, and then I'm going to tear my ACL there." It seems pretty messed up. I get it, especially if you're going to lose your scholarship, like 100%. Yeah. But I don't know. I can't assume that's what's happening here.
No, I just would recognize it as a possibility. And then the other thing was
also, do you think he would be dirt biking in like a very busy part of Philadelphia? That seems crazy.
BMX biking, not
sorry. Thank you,
BMX
CJ.
Biking, yeah.
CJ actually me not knowing anything about bike culture.
I think if you've been around cities a lot, there are a lot of bikers who are particularly, I guess what I would say is adventurous and not quite concerned about the cars or the pedestrians. And there is a little bit to that culture, sort of like skateboard.
I see that with
culture.
motorcycles more than
sure. And by the way, there are skate parks. There are skate parks in Philly. That he
I guess it could have happened at like that kind of thing, and then he walks in. Whatever.
Who knows?
But again, I don't care. I don't care. And
unless he was hurting somebody else.
I'm sort of just more naturally going to trust him than the police going like, we can't find any security footage. He's lying. Prostitution or something, probably. Like, those people are just saying shit. People are just freaking saying shit, man.
And then, the last pod I did solo, it's just also predictable. So I wanted to check in on the system in Los Angeles, who won they're now 1-6 with the system on their team as they won their first game last night. I didn't say it. He had
a game winner last night, right?
He had a game winner, a 4-point play. Now, this isn't an I'm right thing. This is more of this was always going to happen. We just already know it, and the rest of the country and the Clippers fans do not know it. I said on the pod that James Harden was definitely not going to try that hard until they made him the primary playmaker because he did not want to be the other guy. So, of course, they lose 6 straight games, and then Russell Westbrook, quote-unquote, asked to go to the bench.
He texted Doc Rivers.
Asked to go to the bench. Mm-hmm. And then, amazingly, James Harden has an efficient 24-8-7 and a game winner in their first win since he's been back there. Now what they will do, this is exactly what will happen, is because James Harden is a good regular season player and they're talented, they will be a good enough regular season team and they will have games where everybody is like trying to clown us because of how James Harden is playing, and they will fail in the playoffs because that's who they are. And I just want everyone to know that's exactly what's going to happen because this is what always was going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. They're good players. He's still a good player in many ways. And I don't know that winning a game against the Rockets at home is no one's doing a victory lap. They're feisty, but I think it's false feistiness. I don't think it's going to hold up. Man, PJ Tucker, 15 minutes, 0 statistics, a -24. I'm so glad that they don't have him anymore. That contract was dicey when they signed it, and then it was only getting dicier. That's an underrated big deal to get off of that contract for next year.
Well, the thing is for them, if this doesn't work out, that team is, They've got 1 first-round pick. Paul George is not under contract. James Harden is not under contract. Kawhi Leonard is not under contract. Yeah. They do have the advantage of being in Los Angeles, which players want to be, but, man, they have a long road ahead of them if this doesn't work out, which it won't.
Yeah, which is why it's good that we have one of their picks.
Yes. All right. Wow, how I did 75 minutes, I will never know.
Rest the hip.
I'm going to rest the hip. We will be back with you on Wednesday night, and that's all I got. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, lick face.